Do not rush past this. Read slowly, because this is not a message for everyone. This is for the one who has been counting days, calculating losses, and silently asking, how much longer? Pause. There's a reason February 15th keeps returning to your awareness. Not as excitement, not as noise, but as a quiet weight you can't shake. Break. You didn't imagine that. This is the moment where cycles end. Not because you forced them, but because you endured them without losing your integrity. Stay with me. Most people think financial struggle ends with luck. It doesn't. It ends with alignment. Pause. There were nights you slept with numbers running in your head, bills you delayed opening, calls you ignored, not out of irresponsibility, but exhaustion. You carried responsibility without applause. You showed up when quitting would have been easier. That matters. Break. This is the part few understand. Provision doesn't arrive when you panic louder. It arrives when you stop breaking under pressure. And you didn't break. Pause. February 15th is not magic. It is a shift point, a line where effort meets release, where constant draining finally stops, where what has been leaking out begins to return. Break. You're not stepping into sudden wealth. You're stepping out of constant loss. That alone changes everything. Pause. Debts don't vanish through chaos. They dissolve through order. And order is entering your life now. Unexpected solution. Clear decisions. Doors that were shut, not opening dramatically, but unlocking quietly. Break. This is not a spectacle. It is stabilization. And stabilization is the foundation of abundance. Pause. Hear this carefully. What is being filled is not just your account. It is your storehouse, your capacity to hold, manage, and multiply. That is why this took time. Break. If this resonates, don't just listen. Anchor yourself. Comment this specific word below. How reason. Because alignment is what allows provision to stay, not slip away. And do not disconnect now. Subscribe to this channel. Turn the bell icon on. Not out of habit, but because these parts are connected. Missing the next one creates confusion. Part 2 will reveal what changes immediately after February 15th, and why some people miss it even when the door opens. Type Part 2 in the comments if you're ready to continue. Stay here. The shift has started, but this is only the beginning. Part 2. What opens when the weight lifts? Do not skim this, because this part explains why relief feels unfamiliar at first. Pause. When pressure lasts too long, the mind learns to survive, not to receive. That is why when the struggle begins to loosen, many people miss the moment. They don't trust it. Stay with me. February 15th is not loud. It doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives with space. Break. Space in your thoughts. Space in your decisions. Space between panic and action. That space is the signal. Pause. Here is what changes immediately after the burden begins to lift. You stop reacting and start choosing. This is where financial restoration actually begins. Break. You will notice small things first. A conversation that doesn't feel heavy. A decision that suddenly feels clear. An option you dismissed earlier returning with better terms. These are not coincidences. They are indicators. Pause. Most people expect money first, but clarity comes before increase. Always. Because without clarity, increase disappears as fast as it arrives. Break. Your storehouse is being filled, not dumped into. That means better judgment, stronger boundaries, wisdom replacing desperation. This is protection. Pause. There were opportunities before that you weren't meant to take. If you had, they would have drained you further. Now, the timing is different. Now you are different. Break. Pay attention to what stops feeling urgent. Urgency was never your strength. Endurance was. And endurance prepared you for stability. Pause. This is also where debts begin to lose control over your emotions. They may still exist on paper, but they stop ruling your peace. That is how freedom starts. Inside first. Break. Do not measure this shift by speed. Measure it by relief. Relief is evidence that resistance is ending. Pause. If you feel calmer reading this, that calm is not random. It is confirmation. Anchor this moment. Comment this specific word below. Steady. Reason. Because steadiness is what keeps overflow from turning into loss. And listen carefully if you want to stay aligned with what unfolds next. Subscribe to this channel now and turn the bell icon on. Each part builds on the last. Skipping creates gaps. Part 3 will expose the mistake people make after relief arrives and how to avoid falling back into the same cycle. Type Part 3 in the comments when you're ready. Do not leave early. The door has opened. Now you must learn how to walk through it. Part 3. The invisible trap after relief. Stay focused, because this is where many people lose what was just released to them, not because they are unworthy, but because no one warned them. Pause. When pressure lifts, the first enemy is memory. Your mind remembers lack longer than it remembers promises. So even after February 15th shifts something, old habits try to return. Break. Let me say this clearly. God is ending your financial struggle, but He is not returning you to the same thinking. That thinking was shaped by survival, not abundance. Pause. Here is the invisible trap, trying to rush what is meant to stabilize. People who suffered long feel they must grab everything at once. But rushing leaks blessing. Break. The miracle does not require panic. It requires alignment. And alignment looks slow to people who are afraid. Pause. After relief, you may feel an urge to say yes too quickly, spend emotionally, help everyone immediately, prove you're no longer struggling. This is not generosity. This is fear in a new outfit. Break. God is not testing you with lack anymore. He is testing you with discipline, because discipline protects overflow. Pause. You will notice this shift. You stop explaining yourself. You stop proving your worth. You stop chasing validation through money. That silence is strength returning. Break. Debts begin losing their voice here, not because they vanish instantly, but because they no longer define your future. You begin negotiating instead of fearing. Pause. Here is something important. Provision increases when peace leads your decisions. If anxiety leads, doors close again. This is why you're being slowed down on purpose. Break. God is not delaying you. He is spacing your steps, so the foundation can carry the weight of what is coming. Pause. Do not compare your pace with anyone else. Some people receive quickly and lose quickly. You're being rebuilt to keep what you receive. Break. This is the stage where wisdom feels louder than excitement. That is a sign you are ready. Now listen carefully. To seal this phase, comment this specific word. Order. Reason. Because order is what turns provision into permanence. And do not skip this instruction. Subscribe to this channel and turn the bell icon on now. Each chapter protects the next blessing. Part 4 will reveal how God redirects money toward people who stop chasing it. Type Part 4 in the comments when you're prepared. Do not move ahead casually. This is where stability is locked in. Part 4. The redirection you did not see coming. Do not rush this part, because what I'm about to say explains why money starts moving toward you instead of you chasing it. Pause. Most people believe increase comes from effort alone, but effort without direction creates exhaustion, not overflow. Break. After February 15th, something subtle begins to happen. God does not shout this change. He redirects it. Quietly, strategically, precisely. Pause. Here is the truth few people understand. When God decides to end financial struggle, He first removes you from places that drain you, not just physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Break. You may notice this. Certain conversations stop. Certain demands fall silent. Certain obligations dissolve without explanation. This is not loss. This is redirection. Pause. God is cutting off leaks you normalized. People who only showed up when you were paying. Situations that required you to overgive to feel accepted. Work that paid you but robbed your peace. Break. Money does not flow where peace is violated. That is why redirection comes before multiplication. Pause. This is where many get confused. They think doors are closing. But what's actually happening is this. God is narrowing your focus so provision can find you. Break. When you stop chasing, you become visible. When desperation leaves, alignment arrives. Pause. You're not being slowed down. You are being positioned. Position attracts provision. Break. Here is something important. God does not bless chaos. He blesses order, timing, and obedience. That is why this phase feels quiet. Quiet does not mean inactive. Quiet means precision. Pause. You may feel drawn to things that don't make sense yet. A skill you ignored. A connection you underestimated. An idea that feels small but peaceful. Do not dismiss these nudges. This is how money is redirected toward you. Break. Provision often enters through paths that don't look impressive at first, but they grow because God is in them. Pause. You are no longer allowed to chase everything. That season is over. From now on, what belongs to you will locate you. Break. But there is a condition, and you must hear this carefully. God only redirects resources to people who stop chasing validation. If money is still your proof of worth, it will avoid you. If peace is your priority, money follows. Pause. This is why your thinking has been changing, why your patience has increased, why you no longer panic the way you used to. That is maturity being formed. Break. Immaturity carries wealth safely. Now do this to seal this chapter. Comment this specific word. Positioned. Reason. Because what is positioned correctly does not need to chase. And listen carefully. Subscribe to this channel now. And turn the bell icon on immediately. Every chapter builds protection around what God is releasing. Part 5 will reveal the moment money responds to obedience instead of effort. Type Part 5 in the comments when you are ready to go deeper. Do not skip ahead. This next part changes how increase enters your life permanently. Part 5. The moment money responds to obedience, not effort. Stop scrolling. This part is heavier than the others, because this is where most people miss their breakthrough. Not because they lack faith, but because they misunderstand how God releases provision. Pause. You were taught that money answers to hustle, that the more you push, the more you receive. That exhaustion is proof you're doing something right. Break. But February 15th marks a shift from effort-based survival to obedience-based supply. Pause. Here is the truth that changes everything. God never designed money to respond to stress. Money responds to alignment. Break. Effort can open doors. Obedience keeps them open. Pause. After February 15th, you may notice something unusual. You will do less, yet results will begin to show up faster. Not because you became lazy, but because God removed resistance. Break. Resistance is what drains you. You are fighting battles you were never assigned, trying to prove yourself to systems God already planned to replace. Pause. God does not reward overworking. He rewards right positioning and right timing. That's why this season feels different. Break. Here's how you'll recognize it. Opportunities will feel calm, not chaotic. Decisions will feel clear, not confusing. Provision will come with peace, not pressure. Pause. This is not coincidence. This is obedience activating provision. Break. When God speaks and you move, even when it feels small, money follows. Not instantly, sometimes, but inevitably. Pause. This is why impatience had to be removed first. An impatient heart leaks money. A grounded heart multiplies it. Break. You're learning to move without panic, to say no without guilt, to wait without fear. That is wealth training. Pause. God does not pour abundance into unstable hands. He trains the hands first. Break. That's why certain delays were necessary. Why some prayers fell unanswered. Why some doors refused to open. You were not being denied. You were being prepared. Pause. And now comes the shift. Provision no longer requires begging. It requires agreement. Agreement with God's instruction. Break. If God tells you to pause, pause. If He tells you to speak, speak. If He tells you to walk away, walk away. Money will follow obedience faster than effort ever could. Pause. This is where many people lose it. They hear instruction, but override it with logic. Logic says work harder. God says move differently. Break. When you obey, even when it doesn't make sense, you step into a flow effort cannot create. Pause. This is why your struggle ends. Not because you suddenly became stronger, but because you stopped resisting direction. Break. Now do this carefully. Comment this specific word. Obedient. Reason. Because provision responds to obedience, not desperation. And listen closely. Subscribe to this channel now. And turn the bell icon on immediately. Each part protects the next blessing from delay. Part 6 will reveal the exact reason debts begin dissolving without force, and why God handles them differently than income. Type Part 6 in the comments when you're ready. Do not skip this. This next chapter explains why financial weight starts lifting instead of piling up. Part 6. Why God removes debt before He increases income. Slow down. This part is critical, because most people think freedom comes when money increases. But God operates in the opposite order. Pause. God does not start by adding more weight to a system already under pressure. He removes weight first. Break. That is why February 15th is not just about new money. It is about financial breathing space. Relief before overflow. Pause. Debt is not just a number. Debt is spiritual pressure. It affects how you think, how you sleep, how you decide. Break. That is why God addresses debt differently than income. Income is added. Debt is broken. Pause. You don't fight debt by chasing more money. You escape debt by breaking its authority over your life. Break. Here's something most people never realize. Debt feeds on fear. Fear of shortage. Fear of tomorrow. Fear of not having enough. Pause. And fear creates bad decisions. Quick loans. Wrong partnerships. Short-term relief that causes long-term damage. Break. That's why God had to calm your spirit first. You couldn't receive debt freedom while still operating in panic mode. Pause. Now listen carefully. After February 15th, debt begins losing its grip in unexpected ways. Not always through sudden cash, but through canceled obligations, renegotiated terms, help appearing without asking, expenses disappearing without explanation, payments becoming lighter instead of heavier. Break. This is God dismantling pressure. Pause. You will notice something strange. Your mind feels clearer around money. You stop making desperate choices. You stop reacting emotionally to bills. That calm is not psychological. It is spiritual authority returning. Break. Debt only controls those who feel powerless. When authority returns, debt weakens. Pause. This is why shame had to go first. Shame keeps people trapped. Shame whispers, "You caused this. You deserve this. You'll never get out." Break. But God never speaks through shame. Correction brings clarity. Shame brings paralysis. Pause. You are not punished with death. You are learning discernment. Break. And now comes release. God starts handling things you couldn't fix. Calls you never expected. Solutions you didn't plan. Doors opening that lead to relief, not stress. Pause. This is divine intervention in financial form. Break. But here's the warning, and don't miss this. When debt starts loosening, temptation increases. Temptation to spend early. Temptation to celebrate prematurely. Temptation to replace old debt with new habits. Pause. This is where discipline protects the miracle. Break. God removes pressure so you can build stability, not to repeat cycles. Pause. That's why wisdom matters now more than speed. Slow growth with peace beats fast money with anxiety. Break. And now comes the instruction. Comment this specific word. Freedom. Reason. Because debt loses power the moment freedom becomes your priority. And listen carefully. Subscribe to this channel right now and turn the bell icon on. Every chapter builds protection around the next breakthrough. Part 7 will expose why some people lose blessings after receiving them and how you avoid that trap completely. Type Part 7 in the comments when you're ready. Do not rush past this. The next chapter teaches you how to keep what God releases. Part 7. Why some people lose the blessing after receiving it, and why you won't. Stay with me. This chapter is not emotional. It is protective, because receiving a miracle is one thing. Keeping it is another. Pause. Most people think the danger is before the breakthrough. No, the real danger begins after. Break. This is where many stories quietly collapse. Not because God stopped blessing, but because the person stopped guarding. Pause. Here is a truth rarely spoken. Blessings don't disappear suddenly. They leak slowly, through habits, through pride, through silence, through distraction. Break. God does not remove blessings. People slowly step out of alignment. Pause. After February 15th, something shifts in your financial atmosphere. Pressure reduces. Options increase. Confidence returns. Break. And confidence, if unmanaged, becomes careless. Pause. This is where people say things like, I'm good now. I don't need to be as disciplined. I'll handle it myself. Break. That sentence, I've got this now, has ended more breakthroughs than failure ever did. Pause. Let me explain something important. Before the blessing, you depended on God. After the blessing, you were tempted to depend on yourself. Break. That shift is subtle, dangerously subtle. Pause. This is why God teaches stewardship after provision. Provision reveals power. Stewardship provas maturity. Break. Money magnifies what already exists inside you. If there is wisdom, it multiplies. If there is ego, it expands. If there is discipline, it strengthens. If there is carelessness, it accelerates. Pause. God is not testing you by withholding. He is watching how you handle abundance. Break. Here's the protection key most people miss. Silence. Pause. Not everyone needs to know your breakthrough. Announcement attracts attention. Attention attracts opinions. Opinions attract pressure. Break. Some people talk their miracle into vulnerability. Pause. You don't owe explanations. You don't owe proof. You don't owe lifestyle upgrades for validation. Break. Your peace is more valuable than impressions. Pause. Another reason blessings leak. Trying to rescue everyone. Break. Hear this clearly. You are not called to become everyone's solution. God didn't free you so you could replace him for others. Pause. Helping is holy. Overextending is harmful. Break. People drain what God gave you because they refuse responsibility for themselves. Pause. Discernment protects overflow. Break. Now, listen closely. This part matters. When money starts flowing again, old patterns will knock. Old spending habits, old desires, old shortcuts, old addictions masked as rewards. Pause. The enemy does not attack with lack anymore. He attacks with permission. Break. If God blessed you, surely this is fine. If you survive the struggle, you deserve this. If it feels good, it must be allowed. Pause. That logic destroys foundations. Break. God blesses you to build legacy, not to repeat cycles. Pause. That's why this season requires intentional decisions. You don't drift into stability. You design it. Break. Budgeting becomes worship. Saving becomes obedience. Planning becomes faith. Pause. Faith is not reckless. Faith is aligned. Break. Now here is the reassurance. You will not lose this blessing because you're listening, because you're staying alert, because you're choosing wisdom over impulse. Pause. God already saw your future decisions and still released the breakthrough. Break. That means he trusts you. Pause. But trust grows when you stay connected. So here is the instruction for this chapter. Subscribe to this channel now and turn the bell icon on. Each chapter reinforces your discernment. Missing one weakens protection. Break. Comment this specific word. Steward. Reason. Because what you declare, you guard. And type part 8 in the comments. The next chapter will reveal the one financial habit God honors immediately, and why it accelerates stability faster than income ever could. Do not rush. This is how you keep what heaven releases. Part 8. The one financial habit God honors immediately, and why it accelerates stability faster than income. Do not skim this. Slow down. This chapter is quiet, but it is decisive, because many people pray for increase, but God looks for alignment. Break. Income changes circumstances. Alignment changes outcomes. Pause. Here is the habit God honors immediately. Consistency in obedience before consistency in comfort. Let that settle. Break. Most people wait to be comfortable before they become consistent. God waits for consistency before he releases comfort. Pause. That is the order. Break. You don't stabilize your finances by earning more first. You stabilize them by honoring structure first. Pause. Structure tells heaven you are prepared. Break. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. Before the big doors open, God watches the small ones. How you manage the little surplus. How you plan the small budget. How you resist the small impulse. How you track the small expense. Pause. Small decisions create spiritual credibility. Break. Many people say, once I make more money, I'll be disciplined. God responds silently. Once you're disciplined, I'll trust you with more. Pause. This is not punishment. This is preparation. Break. The habit is simple, but powerful. Set aside first. Spend later. Pause. Not what's left. Not what's convenient. Not what you feel like. First. Break. When you reverse the order, chaos follows. Spend first. Save later. Enjoy first. Plan later. React first. Reflect later. Pause. That order creates anxiety, even with high income. Break. God honors priority, not pressure. Pause. Priority says, I trust God with the unseen future. Pressure says, I must protect myself right now. Break. One is faith. The other is fear disguised as urgency. Pause. Now hear this carefully. Setting aside is not about amount. It's about agreement. Break. You are agreeing with heaven that provision has purpose. Pause. That agreement opens doors you cannot force open. Break. This is why some people earn more and still feel unstable, while others earn less and walk in peace. Pause. Peace is not income-based. Peace is order-based. Break. God blesses order because order multiplies impact. Pause. Another layer of this habit. Tracking. Break. What you track, you respect. What you respect, you protect. Pause. Ignoring numbers does not make stress disappear. It makes it louder later. Break. Tracking is not control. It is clarity. Pause. Clarity removes fear. Break. God does not work in confusion. He works in light. Pause. When you bring your finances into light, shame loses power. Break. Shame says hide. Wisdom says align. Pause. This is why the blessing stays with you. Because you are not chasing money. You are building order. Break. Order invites increase naturally. Pause. Now listen. This next part is crucial. Discipline does not mean restriction forever. It means permission later. Break. You are not saying no to enjoyment. You are saying no to regret. Pause. Future you is thanking present you right now. Break. God sees that gratitude in advance. Pause. That's why stability accelerates faster than income. Because stability is spiritual. Break. Income can be delayed. Alignment cannot. Pause. Now here is your action for this chapter. Subscribe to this channel right now and turn the bell icon on. Each chapter builds the foundation. Skipping breaks continuity. Break. Comment this specific word. Order. Reason. Because what you name, you nurture. And type part 9 in the comments. The next chapter will reveal why sudden opportunities appear after obedience, and how to recognize which doors are divine before you step through them. Stay focused. This is how momentum becomes legacy. Part 9. The doors that open quietly before they change everything. How God signals a divine opportunity. Do not rush this chapter. This one separates discernment from distraction, because not every open door is from God, and not every divine door looks powerful at first. Pause. Some doors whisper before they roar. Break. Most people miss their breakthrough not because God didn't open a door, but because they were waiting for noise, not alignment. Pause. Here is the truth many never hear. God rarely announces opportunity with urgency. He announces it with peace. Break. Pressure shouts. Purpose settles. Pause. If a door forces you to rush, panic, or compromise values, that door is not accelerated by heaven. Break. Divine doors invite you to move forward without losing yourself. Pause. Now listen carefully. When God opens a door, 3 signals appear together. Not 1, not 2, 3. Break. Signal 1. Internal calm instead of external hype. The opportunity may look unfamiliar, even intimidating, but inside there is stillness. Pause. Fear may exist, but chaos does not. Break. You're not scrambling. You are considering. Pause. God never competes with confusion. Break. If something excites your ego but unsettles your spirit, pause. Pause longer than you want to. Break. Peace is the green light of heaven. Signal 2. Alignment with your new discipline. This is critical. God will not open a door that destroys the order He just taught you. Pause. If the opportunity pulls you back into old habits, old spending patterns, old shortcuts, old dependencies, that is not elevation. That is recycling. Break. Divine doors respect your growth. Pause. They don't require you to abandon structure. They require you to apply it. Break. If discipline disqualifies an opportunity, thank God. You were protected. Signal 3. Timing that feels prepared, not forced. Watch this. Divine doors open when you are ready to carry responsibility, not when you're desperate for relief. Pause. Desperation clouds judgment. Preparation sharpens it. Break. This is why God delays some doors until your character catches up. Pause. Sudden money without maturity creates stress, not stability. Break. God is not slow. He is precise. Pause. Now, let me reveal something hidden. When God opens a door, He also closes alternatives quietly. Break. You lose interest in distractions. Shortcuts stop appealing. Old desires feel empty. Pause. That is not boredom. That is focus. Break. He is narrowing your vision so you don't divide your energy. Pause. Many people pray for many options. God answers with one clear direction. Break. Because power multiplies when attention is singular. Pause. This is why you must not announce every opportunity publicly. Break. Some doors close when exposed too early. Pause. Protect what God is building. Now hear this next part slowly. Divine opportunity does not demand immediate reward. It promises long-term fruit. Break. It may start small, quiet, unimpressive to others. Pause. But it grows without strain. Break. Strain is a sign you are forcing something. Pause. God's doors may stretch you, but they never drain you. Break. Stretching builds capacity. Draining destroys it. Pause. And now, the most important warning. Do not confuse speed with favor. Break. Some doors open fast because they are unstable. Pause. God values sustainability more than speed. Break. You're not behind. You're being positioned. Pause. Now this chapter requires commitment. Subscribe to this channel right now and turn the bell icon on. You cannot afford to miss the next chapter. This series builds layer by layer. Break. Comment this specific word. Discernment. Reason. Because discernment protects blessings from being wasted. And type part 10 in the comments. The next chapter will expose why money starts responding differently after alignment, and how debt loses power without struggle. Stay anchored. You're closer than you think. Part 10. When money starts obeying alignment. The moment provision shifts without struggle. Do not skim this chapter. This is where confusion ends and clarity begins. Pause. Many people pray for money to come. Few understand why money resists them. Break. Money does not respond to panic. Money responds to order. Pause. God does not release provision into chaos. He releases it into alignment. Break. This is the moment where something invisible changes. Pause. Up to now, you were chasing outcomes. From here on, outcomes begin chasing alignment. Break. Let this sink in. When your inner world becomes ordered, your outer world reorganizes automatically. Pause. That is not motivation. That is spiritual law. Break. Here is the truth most never hear. Provision is not a reward for effort alone. It is a response to positioning. Pause. You can work endlessly and still struggle. If you're misaligned, break. And you can work steadily and see doors open when alignment is restored. Pause. This is why two people can do the same work and experience completely different results. Break. One is striving. The other is aligned. Pause. Now listen carefully. Alignment does not mean perfection. It means direction. Break. God does not wait for flawlessness. He waits for faithfulness. Pause. Faithfulness is consistency when nobody applauds. Break. This is where February 15th matters. Not as a lucky date, but as a decision point. Pause. A line in the sand where you stop operating the old way. Break. From this point, you stop saying, I hope something changes. Pause. And you begin saying, I am prepared for what is opening. Break. Here is what happens next. When alignment locks in, money stops leaking through small habits. Pause. Unnoticed expenses slow down. Impulsive decisions lose control. Pressure, spending disappears. Break. You don't feel deprived. You feel focused. Pause. That focus becomes favor. Break. Then something subtle happens. Opportunities begin to find you. Pause. Not because you chased them, but because you became visible to the right level. Break. People notice reliability before talent. Consistency before charisma. Pause. God positions you in rooms where money flows differently. Break. This is not magic. This is maturity. Pause. Debt loses power when income gains structure. Break. Most debt survives on disorder. Pause. Once order is restored, debt becomes temporary. Break. Now listen closely. Provision increases in stages. First, stability. Then margin. Then overflow. Pause. God does not skip stages. Break. Overflow without stability creates collapse. Pause. This is why God fills your storehouse before expanding your territory. Break. If you have felt stuck at almost enough, this chapter explains why. Pause. You were learning to steward before you could store. Break. Now stewardship is catching up. Pause. And with it comes confidence. Break. Confidence is quiet. It does not announce itself. Pause. But it changes how you move, decide, and speak. Break. And people respond to that. Pause. Now hear this clearly. You do not need more hustle. You need maintain alignment. Break. Do not abandon the simple disciplines you rebuilt. Pause. What feels boring is what makes you unstoppable. Break. God grows empires through daily obedience, not emotional bursts. Pause. And now the instruction. Subscribe to this channel right now and turn the bell icon on. Every chapter builds the next. Missing one breaks the flow. Break. Before you leave, comment this specific word. Alignment. Reason. Because alignment attracts provision without struggle. And type part 11 in the comments. The next chapter reveals how generational poverty breaks quietly and why your children will not inherit your battles. Stay steady. The shift has already begun. Part 11. The silent break of generational poverty. What ends with you and never returns. Read slowly. This chapter is not loud, but it is final. Pause. Most people think generational poverty breaks with a sudden miracle, a big check, a viral success, a dramatic turnaround. Break. But that is not how God usually ends cycles. Pause. God ends generational poverty quietly. Break. So quietly that people around you don't even realize. Something ancient just lost its power. Pause. Generational poverty is not only about money. It is about patterns. Break. Patterns of fear. Patterns of rushed decisions. Patterns of surviving instead of building. Pause. You inherited habits before you inherited responsibility. Break. And none of that was your fault. Pause. But ending it is your assignment. Break. Here is the truth few are prepared to hear. God does not curse families. Families repeat what they never confront. Pause. And repetition feels normal until someone interrupts it. Break. That interruption is happening through you. Pause. This is why your struggle felt heavier than others. Break. You are not only carrying your own load. You are carrying unfinished lessons. Pause. Bills that weren't just financial, but behavioral. Break. Now pay attention. Generational poverty breaks when language changes first. Pause. You stop saying, "We never have enough," and start saying, "We are learning how to manage increase." Break. Words matter because they shape expectation. Pause. Expectation shapes preparation. Break. Preparation determines access. Pause. This is why February 15th is not random. Break. It marks the moment your mindset stopped negotiating with lack. Pause. You no longer romanticize struggle. You no longer bond with hardship. Break. You respect where you came from without recreating it. Pause. That is maturity. Break. Next comes boundaries. Generational poverty survives through emotional spending. Pause. Spending to feel included. Spending to feel generous when you are bleeding. Spending to avoid guilt. Break. But alignment introduces discernment. Pause. You begin to say not now without shame. Break. And every not now protects a future yes. Pause. Your children will never know what it feels like to grow up anxious about money. Break. Not because they will be spoiled, but because they will be structured. Pause. Structure is a gift. Break. Here is where God steps in deeper. God begins redirecting your decisions before mistakes happen. Pause. You feel hesitation where you used to feel impulse. Break. That hesitation is not fear. It is wisdom activating. Pause. And wisdom saves money faster than income increases it. Break. This is why you may notice missed opportunities that later reveal hidden traps. Pause. God is protecting what you haven't even built yet. Break. Now understand this. Generational poverty ends when peace replaces panic. Pause. You stop rushing. You stop comparing. You stop explaining your pace. Break. Your pace becomes intentional. Pause. And intention compounds. Break. What took others 10 years of chaos will take you fewer years of clarity. Pause. Not because you are smarter, but because you are aligned. Break. Now listen carefully. Do not announce this shift to everyone. Pause. Some people only know you as the version that struggled. Break. Let results speak. Pause. Silence is part of the upgrade. Break. God often finishes cycles privately, so pride cannot contaminate the process. Pause. And now the instruction. Subscribe to this channel right now and turn the bell icon on. Each chapter is a layer of protection and understanding. Skipping breaks momentum. Break. Before you leave, comment this specific word. Foundation. Reason. Because what you are building now will hold generations, not just you. And type part 12 in the comments. The next chapter reveals why sudden financial peace feels unfamiliar at first, and how not to sabotage what God is stabilizing. Do not rush. The old cycle has already ended. Final part. The seal is set. Why this breakthrough cannot be reversed. Do not rush through this final chapter, because this is not motivation. This is confirmation. Pause. Everything you have heard until now was preparation. Break. This last part explains why what God started cannot be undone, delayed, or stolen again. Pause. Most people lose breakthroughs not because the door never opened, but because they didn't understand what to protect after it did. Break. God does not just give miracles. He gives instructions that preserve them. Pause. Here is the truth few are told. Break. The enemy does not fight what is temporary. Pause. He fights what is permanent. Break. If resistance increased, if doubt whispered louder, if distractions multiplied, pause. That is not coincidence. Break. That is confirmation that something irreversible has been authorized. Pause. February 15th was not the end of your struggle. Break. It was the end of your permission to struggle. Pause. From this point forward, lack will no longer feel normal to you. Break. Even when resources are tight, your spirit will reject poverty thinking. Pause. That rejection is the seal. Break. Because once your mind no longer agrees with lack loses its legal ground. Pause. This is why your tolerance has changed. Break. You no longer accept disrespect in payments. You no longer tolerate confusion in finances. You no longer feel comfortable being underpaid. Pause. That discomfort is holy. Break. It is God lifting your standards to match your future. Pause. Now hear this carefully. Break. The breakthrough is not just money. Pause. It is authority over money. Break. Even closed doors will protect you, not punish you. Pause, because the system around you has changed. Break. You're no longer surviving season to season. Pause. You are building legacy momentum. Break. And legacy momentum does not reverse. Pause. Here is the final instruction. Break. Do not announce everything. Pause. Do not explain yourself to everyone. Break. Do not seek validation for what God already approved. Pause. Silence protects growth. Break. Consistency compounds it. Pause. This is why you must stay connected. Break. Subscribe to this channel now and turn the bell icon on. These messages are not random. They are timed recalibrations. Missing one weakens focus. Pause. Before you go, comment this specific word. Sealed. Reason. Because what God released on February 15th is no longer a hope, a prayer, or a wish. It is established. Pause. And if you understood this series from the beginning, type Amen after your comment. This is not the end. This is the point where your life quietly starts proving, where your mouth no longer needs to explain,